Lich King, or fighting Deathwing, for instance. There were some characters in the lore that definitely wanted a piece of Deathwing that we didn't really get a chance to incorporate into the game. We had to really focus on the main characters and such. So Sourfang, we really should do something with him, but we'll have to kind of see where he fits into the story and if it's worth taking the time to do that. Because, you know, again, gameplay first, so you don't want to be playing the game and then have to go through adventures with like 50 different characters because we have to go through the list and tell what everybody's doing every time. So it's a good question, but no promises.
Interesting sidebar, Rexar is one of my favorite characters. He is just awesome, and I was fighting to get him into this novel, but I was outvoted, and I think rightfully so. He would have been extraneous, but hopefully we're going to see Rexar at some point in the future too.
Woo!
Lore question. I've noticed that, to use an early example, even Rel Nightwing, I think that's his name, his doubt manifested by the Shah in the beginning. So why is it that, I mean, I play both a Warlock and a Death Knight. Both of them are often seen as very dark or angry or anything. Why is it that the Pandaren pay no more attention to the Warlock than they would a Hunter? Because one would think a Warlock or a Death Knight would be somewhat cancerous on Pandaria, right?
Yeah. One of the things we try and establish with the Shah is that you as a player have the kind of strength and the soul and the fortitude that you're not going to become overwhelmed and possessed by it. I think there's a couple small places where it starts to kind of get you. But that's really kind of the story we were trying to tell. And also for a gameplay reason, it's really difficult to have a whole bunch of separate class stuff. Like the whole world would treat a Death Knight differently. It's really hard to do in the game. I hope that answers your question. I mean, it's a good question, and certainly we were writing a novel, like a Death Knight would definitely be struggling with this kind of thing more. But as a player, we didn't want to gimp Death Knights by having you constantly get taken over by Shah. Thanks.
Hi there. Just for the record, I'd like to say I'm a dedicated lore master achiever and an aspiring writer myself. My question is, because I've been following the lore from most of the games, and also been following up with friends who were big Age of Warcraft fans to begin with. A lot of your lore from the past, especially like in Burning Crusade and so on, did a lot of things that people argued were against their nature. For example, Chaos, maybe rest in peace. People were very upset with how the game decided to end his fate. And my question to you is, when do you feel it's time for that out with the old, into the new, when it revolves around a character that played such an important role in the game?
That's a really good question. I don't know that there's a really good answer. It depends on the character, and if we do our job right, then you don't have that moment where you're like, why did this character do that? What happened to this character that they're that way? I don't understand it. We definitely want to make it a better, more consistent story. It's something we're always working toward. Varian has certainly gone through a lot of changes between all the novels, and we're trying to depict that in game. We're trying to depict how he is stepping up as a leader in these expansions, and I hope that his character arc feels like he's rising to the occasion, and hopefully that communicates in game, and hopefully there's not a moment where you're like, this king isn't right. This wasn't what I thought he was like before. So it's something we're always working on, to make those characters just feel like natural progression for all the characters.
Thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
Alright, my first one is, you know the Monopoly game of World of Warcraft? Is there going to be like a Monopoly guy or pet in World of Warcraft?
Good question for Micky.
I do not know. Yeah, that's actually Dave. Do you know?
I don't know.
Dave works with the licensed products folks, so yeah.
You need to get the Monopoly expansions.
No definitive answer on that one, sorry.
And, you know how, oh god, refresher. I forget his name, the war chief of the war. I just forgot.
Garrosh.
All right. Yeah. Is karma eventually gonna kill him or something bad gonna happen?
Down with Garrosh!
Spoiler.
You guys don't like Garrosh? His time will come.
That was US Moto? Super service, man. My question is, not my question, but my favorite lore stuff to do was the stuff with World of Warcraft show.
Oh, cool.
And my question was, are you guys going to add stuff like that to the previous areas, like Kalimdor and Azeroth and Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdoms, and like talk about Naga, Varlox, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. It's one of those experiments that we're looking for player feedback for and to see what people think about it. We were trying to do a couple of things with the Lore Walker. One of the goals of this expansion was to kind of reward you for exploring the world and kind of get you out in the continent and doing things. To that extent, we tried to put the Lore Walker monuments, we tried not to hide them. We tried to kind of put them in places where chances are you'd see a lot of them as you were running around, or if you ever went to investigate something like, hey, cool, check out that cool turtle statue over there. You would find one of these and get rewarded. We didn't hide them so that you didn't feel obliged like you have to get a guide in order to find them all. So hopefully you can find most of them through ordinary gameplay. So one thing was to just get you out and explore the world more. And the other was we had an absolutely wonderful voice actor for Cho, and we really wanted the lore of Pandaria to feel more alive. And so we wanted to tell those stories to you in the way a Pandaren might hear them. It's very much a kind of oral tradition culture where stories would be passed down. And so we wanted to get Lore Walker Cho there to kind of tell you the story and really show you what was going on. And I thought that was a much cooler way to interact with the lore. And so I'm glad you liked it. I've been watching the forums. It seems like a lot of players are really enjoying it. And so I don't think we have plans necessarily to go back to the old world and add all of that in. But maybe it's something that's popular enough that going forward we'll probably consider doing something like that in future content.
What is worth fighting for? Tier tiles, that's pretty awesome.
What's that?
What is worth fighting for?
Oh.
Art, or does it all different?
Excellent. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Bring Illidan back to life.
Alright, here's an interesting question. I mean, I kind of disagree with gameplay first. I think storytelling and gameplay should be balanced. Isn't that the main selling point of role-playing games?
So it's a good question because ideally you want to do both, but sometimes you have to make a decision as to what players see on the screen, what players are doing, and what ultimately happens. If World of Warcraft was a story-first game, it would be very, 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 very different. Gameplay first is kind of our yardstick to kind of help us determine what goes on the screen, how much time we spend, how much you listen to NPCs, get to know NPCs, what's going on. It's a very deliberate decision, and it's a very different game than a story-first game.
I mean, if you look at, for example, Warcraft 3, before every mission, there's art development.
I think we've obviously played with story in World of Warcraft for years now, trying to figure out how best to do it. The Warcraft 3 is an interesting example because I remember there's a scene that I often examine with our writers, a great scene where Stratholme was going to be purged, and there's a moment between Arthas and Uther. It's a very powerful moment, and it was fantastic in Warcraft 3. Now we took that exact same moment with arguably much better graphics, and we put it into one of the dungeons, and you sort of had to go through that moment every time you played the dungeon. And it was terrible. It's the same moment. It's this amazing, amazing thing. But like the 8th time through, and you got 5 other people in the dungeon. I mean, skip. Please, God, let me skip this scene. So we know that an RTS and a MMO, they're going to play differently. They're going to have different constraints. And we really try and make sure that the gameplay is front and center with World of Warcraft and surround it with story such that you're going to get the story as you play the game, but that the gameplay is always first. It's what I have a whole, I actually gave a whole presentation about this to Blizzard's, what I call, the road, the uncluttered road. That's your gameplay, and you plant trees and flowers all along the roads. It's beautiful. If you stop and smell the flowers and read the quest text, it should be beautiful. But the road is always clear. There's no flowers in the middle of the road. Yeah, so a deliberate decision, and it means we have a certain type of game as a result. But I don't see that changing. I'm a gameplay first guy. Even though I'm story, I'm gameplay first. I totally